Welcome to the first show looking at the Euros 2020 or 2021, depending on how you want to look at it. Obviously, the tournament was postponed because of COVID, but we're looking forward to it. And with me today, I have Ahmed Faraaz Parker from Sportycast, and I have Wasim Ebrahim from All Things Football. So this is a joint venture collaboration between the two of us, and we're quite excited. I'm quite excited to have Wasim and Ahmed Faraaz on board, and I'm looking forward to a good discussion. So welcome, guys, and thanks for your time.
Thanks for having us.
What's up?
So to get straight in, guys, Wasim, maybe you can just kick us off with a little bit of information on the format of the Euros.
Yeah, so it's a format where it went from 16 teams, where it was quite simple, 4 groups, and then the top 2 going through to the quarters. So now they've shifted it because they wanted more teams, more money, more matches. So they made it 24 teams, but that now breaks the dynamic where the top 2 doesn't just go through as easily. Well, they do go through, but now there's also room for a team that finishes third to go on and then still make the knockout. So it's the top 2. There's 6 groups of 4. The top 2 then make it through, and then also 4 of the best third place teams of the 6 groups, based on points, they will then also make it through to the knockout. So I think like many people were against it because you finish third out of 4 teams, but you still get rewarded with a place. But I suppose UEFA can say, but look at the last tournament, a team that finished third actually went on to win the tournament in Portugal. So that's what happens. So yeah, it's not a format that I'm for, because I feel that you need to at least be in the top 2 out of 4. The best 50% of that group, gets through. So
Yeah.
I feel that this rewards a bit of mediocrity, and it makes the knockouts less interesting because now you've got lesser quality teams in the knockouts. But yeah, that's what UEFA have chosen, and that's how the format looks.
Ahmed Faraaz, your thoughts on the format? You seeing it the way Wasim sees it, or you got something different to add?
Yeah, no, like I'm very much thinking the same as Wasim is. If it's not broken, why fix it? It's basically just a money grab, in my opinion. And yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I'm very much old school.
Yeah.
If you don't make the top 2, then that's the end of the road for you. Go home, watch it on TV.
Yeah, I don't know what the fix is. I suppose, like you guys are mentioning, it's about money and the commercial side of things. But also, I think if you look at it from a sporting perspective, perhaps getting through qualification, you tend to have pretty good teams coming through for the most part. And once we get into the next segment and start looking at the groups, you'll see that they are actually, in most groups, there are actually 4 good teams. So maybe this way it keeps some of the teams in the hunt till the later stage, and also it means that some of the biggest stars get through to the knockouts, which keeps the fan interest, obviously. So yeah, I think we'll have to see how it goes, but I understand where the old school view comes from, and possibly maybe going forward they might look at the format and see how they can make it a bit better. Maybe have more teams in a group, so you play more group matches, and then you get rewarded obviously by winning maybe 4 out of 5 matches or whatever the case is to qualify, rather than just focusing on the 3 games. But in a calendar that's so busy, especially with the domestic leagues, I suppose the international competitions are just doing what they can. So yeah, let's roll with it and see what happens. So how are we going to go through the next segment? Basically, like Wasim mentioned, there are 6 groups and 3 of us. So the math is pretty simple. We'll each take 2 groups, and I'll get us started with Group A. And as an Italian supporter, this is great for me because that's a group that includes Italy, Turkey, Switzerland, and Wales. So for me, again, I feel that those are 4 pretty good teams. The clear favorite in Group A for me would be Italy. And the reason I say that is because they've done really well under Mancini in recent times. They have a pretty good squad. I'd say they don't have any superstar players, but they have a good squad with good options. And I'm quite interested to see how a player like Federico Chiesa does on this stage. He's shown a lot of promise over time. And I think this might be the tournament where he actually takes that step up and, increases his stock. Looking through the other teams in Group A, I think Turkey are going to be the dark horse. They've done very well in qualification. They have a tendency to do well in tournaments, and they have a good group of players where several of them actually been part of that little squad that won the Liga. So Burik Yilmaz up front, who can score lots of goals. And then for me also, I think defensively, very important, the lesser defender, Soyuncu, who is at the back. So for me, I think Italy and Turkey are the two strong teams over there. And a lot is expected of Wales, but I don't think they have enough in terms of goals. I think they'll be good defensively again, but can Bale stay fit for the entire tournament? That's a big question. And can they create enough? They need the likes of Ramsey to also be fit and contribute. And then lastly, Switzerland. I think everybody always looks at Switzerland and they're a very average team or whatever, and I think stands out. But somehow in tournaments they just manage. They're strong defensively. They're a good unit, and they get their goals, man. If it's ever set piece or they just nick one here and there, and they somehow find themselves in the knockout. So I think pretty interesting group for me, Italy and Turkey to come out of it, and possibly I think Wales might sneak through in one of those third place finishes. But yeah, it's very difficult to split Wales and Switzerland. Ahmed, Faraaz, your thoughts on the group?
Yeah, I think you've basically just touched on everything that I was thinking about. The Bale aspect though, I mean, he moved to Tottenham this past season on loan so that he can be fit for the Euros, because that was his main objective. And he ended the season quite well with Spurs. So I think he'll be able to carry that form over quite nicely. People like Daniel James as well. He doesn't always play for Manchester United, but when he does, he puts in the work. And whenever he plays for Wales, there's always a good performance that comes out at the end of the day. So I think that Wales might be able to be the second team that goes through instead of Turkey. But yeah, definitely Italy to be the team that probably goes unbeaten in the group.
Yeah, sure. I hope so. That sounds pretty good for me as a Italy supporter. Wasim, your thoughts on the group?
I think it's not going to be as easy for Wales and Turkey. I feel Switzerland are actually a very good team. They're a well-oiled machine. As Ziyaad said, they tend to do well in the tournaments, or at least get to the knockouts. So I feel it's going to be Italy and Switzerland from this group. Wales, they've got talent in terms of one or two players, but do they have enough quality as a team? I don't think so. And Turkey are a good side. I'm actually excited to watch them. I feel they are a team on the rise, but so I feel it's going to be between those three to actually go through. Bale showed for Tottenham, he played well, but he played well in matches where they probably were expected to win. And also he played well when they played a match and then there was a bit of a break, and then you couldn't play too many games close to each other. And in a short tournament like this, where there's a game every 4 days or so, I feel it's gonna make them unstuck. So I'm going with Switzerland and Italy from this group.
Okay, so yeah, look, at the end of the day, with all these tournaments, you hope that the star players stay fit, so you get to see the best of the teams. And unfortunately, we've already seen some injuries. And okay, so we've touched on Group A. We're gonna move on to Group B, and Ahmed Faraaz will take us through that. So over to you.
Okay, great. So Group B is, I think it's Denmark, Finland, Belgium, and Russia. I think those are the 4 teams that's in Group B. Straight out of that, you know that Belgium is the team to look forward to. They basically a team of superstars at the moment. You look no further than Kevin De Bruyne, most influential player in the team. Has an eye for goal, has an eye for a killer pass. Players like Romelu Lukaku that just came off a fantastic season for Inter Milan. Yuri Telemans as well, influential for Leicester, was very influential in the cup run for the FA Cup. And yeah, players like Eden Hazard, he's going to want to silence the doubters. They've all been questioning his fitness, his ability. his hunger for the game. So this is the perfect platform for him to tell the haters like, okay, this is what I actually can do, and like watch me shine. So yeah, like I think Belgium will definitely go through there. The second team that I think will go through as well is Denmark. They don't have many superstars, but in international tournaments, Denmark they find a way to sneak through. Somehow they always like find a way, and they have players like Christian Eriksen, Pierre Emil Højbjerg, Daniel Vass, uh, Yusuf Poulsen. They've all been basically playing for these like top tier clubs, and I mean that experience can go a long way when coming to international tournaments. Yeah, so those are my picks for Group B.
Wasim, how do you see Group B playing out?
Yeah, I think it's quite open as well. Quite similar to Group A in that there's one standout team in Belgium, but then the other three teams will all fancy their chances one way or another. So I'm a big Kevin De Bruyne fan, so I feel that I'm going to be following their progress, and I hope they do well because they have been there or thereabouts for the last few tournaments. I think Brazil or 2018 they reached the semi-finals, I think it was, and they finished third. And Euro also, the last Euros, they were fancied in terms of doing well, but they never quite made it to the final. So this is the last sort of chance for that generation, the golden generation of Belgian football, to sort of win a trophy. So it's going to be interesting how they pan out and how they do. But I think the other teams, it's very open and it's very difficult to call because, you know, before a tournament, we always go on history in terms of Denmark having done well previously. But the other two teams will also fancy their chances. So I think it's going to be a nice open group to watch.
Yeah, I think that with Belgium, obviously the big question is, can they finally realize their potential? Because they've been ranked, you know, number one in the world for quite a while, and they had this golden generation of players that are now coming to the end of their, I suppose, the international careers. You know, as a group, you've got Vermaelen, you've got Jan Vertonghen, you've got obviously Lukaku, Hazard. All these guys are touching 30 or just over, and it's kind of like now or never for that group to finally win a trophy together. And like you said, Ahmed, Faraaz, Lukaku's done really well recently, and it's now up to him to lead this group, I suppose, with his goals and so on. So for Belgium, I think there's a lot of pressure, and the rest of the group, yeah, pretty open. I think Denmark actually do have a really good chance to go through. They do have a solid squad, but for some reason, Russia, I have a feeling Russia might make a deep run. You just never know with the tournaments. And again, with all these teams playing in all these different cities and stuff, you don't know where the advantage is going to come from. So yeah, I agree. Quite open. Interested to see also how Finland does. If our friend Pookie is over there and got some goals in him, so that might be quite interesting. So yeah, that moves us along nicely to Group C. So Wasim, over to you for Group C.
Yeah, Group C, it's also an interesting group in that it's got the Netherlands who are making a return to the major tournaments after missing the last World Cup and the last Euros. It's good to see them. We obviously know they've always had a bunch of talented individuals. So it's good to see them back on the international stage, and they're probably the favorites for this group again. So in this group, it's Netherlands, it's Ukraine, it's Austria, and North Macedonia. Obviously, first time qualification for North Macedonia, so it's an excellent achievement for them just to be here at this stage of a major tournament. But then if you look at Austria and Ukraine, they are two teams who've not really done well in recent times. They don't really get out of the group stages. So for them, they're going to be looking at this and thinking, if we can get a sort of a draw against Netherlands, then all of a sudden we can beat North Macedonia. We should beat them. And then it's just what we do in that game against each other. So I feel that it's going to be between Ukraine and Austria to qualify. For the Netherlands, players to watch out for will be Memphis Depay. He's currently a free agent, or he's trying to be a free agent with his contract now having expired, and he's looking at joining perhaps Barcelona or one or two other clubs. So if he does well in the tournament, it might then increase the offers that come his way. So he's one to watch. And then Wijnaldum also is also a free agent, so he's probably going to sign for PSG. So those are of good players who've been at top tier clubs and done well. So they're going to be exciting to watch again. But there is also Ryan Gravenberch, who's a young 19-year-old from Ajax, who I feel is going to be outstanding when he in this tournament, but also as he matures as a footballer. So he's going to be really one to watch. And one of my favorite picks from this tournament is I hope he does well so that he can get a move to a top club, because he's talented. He's supremely talented. And yeah, from Austria and Ukraine, they've also got players who play in big leagues around the world. So the Austrians have so many players playing in the Bundesliga, so they're used to a quite good competition. And so it's going to be an interesting group. I'm not sure what you guys think of it, but I'm going to be watching this group closely as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the most exciting things is learning about new players. Sometimes you also hear about players, and you hear about them, but you never get to see them. And then when it comes to these big tournaments, you actually get to see them. They announce themselves on the scene or whatever the case is, and it's normally quite exciting. Some players' stocks rise, other players their stocks drop a little. So it will be interesting to watch. And for me, I think another little subplot is the Dutch coach and the Ukraine coach, both excellent former players. You've got Frank de Boer, who unfortunately didn't last too long in the English Premier League. And then you've got Andrei Shevchenko with Ukraine, who a lot of people say that he could be a future Chelsea manager. So again, very interesting to see how Shevchenko does with this Ukraine squad, and then also how Frank de Boer manages the Dutch through this tournament. AF, what do you see in this group?
Yeah, so I'm not really too clued up on the North Macedonia and Austrian players, but the Ukrainian team, they look like a good team that can go through with the Netherlands in this group. Like you said, Shevchenko has done he's done quite well with this group of players. Even though the ability might not be the highest, he's known how to work with him to get the best out of them. So I think they would be the second team to go through with the Netherlands. The Netherlands in the warm-ups has been amazing. They've been playing silky smooth football. Yeah, I think all the players are just looking forward to this tournament. They finally reached a point, I think, since 2010, the 2010 World Cup, they haven't really hit their stride in international tournaments since then. And they finally look like they're gelling. Their chemistry is quite high. And yeah, somebody like Memphis Depay, he's been really, really good in the warm-ups. So I think the Netherlands is definitely a team to watch in the Euros.
Yeah, it's going to be quite exciting. And with North Macedonia quickly, they actually beat Germany in qualifying. So they do have one big scalp to their names. And, with teams like that, if they take points off the other teams, that's what starts to make things a bit more interesting. And I'm sure they have nothing to lose, no expectations. They just go in, and sometimes that's where, if you compare them to Austria, for example, who have some seasoned veterans. You've got David Alaba, Sabitzer as well. There are guys where there is a bit of an expectation, and sometimes as a North Macedonia, you come in and you can just play. There's no weight of expectation. So I fancy them to cause an upset, but I don't see them going too far into the tournament. So we'll take a break over here quickly, and then we'll come back with the rest of the groups. Okay, and we're back with the rest of the group. So I'm going to kick us off with Group D, and that's for the England fans out there. This is a big one. England, for me, are one of the pre-tournament favorites, and Gareth Southgate will have lots of options for once, and I think it's going to be a big challenge for England to pick their best 11 from their group. I mean, they have fantastic players, especially Harry Kane. For me, having a golden boot from the World Cup, I think he's going to do really well for England in this tournament. And the other teams in the group, I don't think they really pose much of a threat to England. But I think there's a theme so far in the groups we've covered, where there's one really strong team and then a couple of other teams that are all pretty much close together. So between Croatia, Scotland, and the Czech Republic, I think they all have a pretty good chance of moving on to the knockouts. But England, for me, are the clear favorites with lots of attacking options, a very good midfield. And I think their only concern might be at the back, whether or not Harry Maguire is fit and then who actually stands a goalkeeper for them. Croatia have a good, experienced squad led by obviously the Luka Modric. And I think they would do well. Again, another team who has a good record in tournaments. Scotland are very interesting. They've got a very good group of players who have, I think, in the last couple of seasons, really stepped up in terms of the Premier League. You know, you're talking about Andy Robertson of Liverpool. You've got Tierney of Arsenal. You've got Nico Williams as well. A couple of other guys that, you know, Stuart Armstrong, Southampton. These are guys that are have good experience. And again, when you come into a tournament like this as a Scotland, you got nothing to lose, man. And I think that's where the advantage is for these teams to just come out and play. The Czech Republic, I would say they're in a new phase. You know, they got a lot of new young players that they're building around. And obviously the standout player would be Thomas Suchek, who was on the shortlist for player of the season in the Premier League. So again, very interesting to see how these teams do. But England strong favorites for me. Ahmed, Faraaz, your thoughts on Group D?
Yeah, definitely England strong favorites over there. It's going to be interesting how they're going to form that front three. Harry Kane is definitely a shoo-in, but the wingers, you have your Sanchos, you have your Fodens, you have your Rashfords. It's going to be tough. You have your Bukayo Saka. Rashford, he's playing with injuries. He's been playing with injuries for the past 6 months, injections before every single game. Personally, I would have liked him to pass on this tournament, being a Manchester United supporter, just to like recuperate. There's enough talent in that England team to see them through, but I don't know, like if he's going to keep on playing with injections, it might be to the detriment of the team. You want your best players out there, you want your fittest players out there, and yeah, same goes for Jordan Henderson. He's hardly played any football this season. He's made the squad somehow. I would have rather had somebody like James Ward-Prowse in the squad instead. That's been Southampton's standout player. But yeah, it's England at the end of the day. They're the best team on paper in that group. Scotland looks very, very good. Czech Republic, you have your Thomas Suchek and Vlad Sufal. The two of the standout players that David Moyes brought in the season. Yeah, so I think it's definitely going to be England and Czech Republic to go through. Maybe Scotland will come through in the best of the thirds.
Yeah, that to be quite exciting for Scotland to go through. And with England, just put a bookmark in there. We're going to come back to that after we hear from Wasim what his thoughts are on Group D are.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting group because Scotland back in a major tournament after a long time, and then also their rivalry with England is always it brings about a great intensity in terms of the matchup and the fans, and it's a great spectacle. So to have it as a group game in this match, in this tournament, it's going to be really great to see. But then Croatia, let's not forget, they made the last World Cup, they made the final. So we can't also just assume that they are done with as a team because they've got a lot of old players. I think they've got experience, know-how, and with some of the players in this squad, they've got real talent. So I'm going with England and Croatia to proceed. And then outsiders will be Czech Republic and Scotland. But I think the nice thing about this group is that there's no real team that's going to say, okay, that's definitely 3 points for us. Or there's each game actually could be much tighter than we think. Even the Czech Republic, Scotland, when England play them, it's not just going to be a walkover for England. So I think it's going to be interesting, and I'm also looking forward to this group because I feel that there's going to be 1 or 2 surprises. Whether it's going to be Croatia, producing 2018 form, or is it going to be Scotland showing that they are worth being on this stage. It's going to be a really nice group to watch.
Yeah, and I think with England, just coming back to that, like I said, we did just get back to England quickly. I personally think that they're going to go with Harry Kane, Phil Foden, and Jadon Sancho. That's a three I see them starting with in most of their games, unless injuries or anything else comes into play.
What about Raheem Sterling?
Nah, I think Sterling's gonna come off the bench. I
And then
actually
you've got
think guys
Grealish
like
also.
I think Grealish and Bukayo Saka are guys that they're gonna look to unleash with 20 minutes to go against tiring
When
legs,
it's an open game, yeah.
a bit more open and things like that. But with England, there's one in their favor is the fact that they're going to be playing almost all their games at Wembley. If they get through, there's I think only one game that's not at Wembley in their possible fixture list. That's a massive advantage for them, and I think that's something they can use obviously to their favor. The question I wanted to ask you guys is, what are your thoughts on Jude Bellingham? So, if I'm going to go to you first, and then we'll see him afterwards, because I don't know much about Jude Bellingham. What are your guys' thoughts on the youngster?
He's a huge talent. I mean, I think he won Young Player of the Year at Dortmund this season. Yeah, he was highly sought after, like after he left Birmingham City, so much so that they retired his number when he left at the age of 16. But yeah, like even now, like teams are interested in him, and Dortmund are reading like a 200 million price tag on him because he's that good and he's so influential. He's solid as a rock in the middle. He sees things that other players don't. I think he's a fantastic talent.
Yeah, Wasim?
Yeah, I haven't seen too much of him, if I'm honest. But what I have read is he's got a real engine on him. So he's up and down. He's a real box-to-box midfielder, if you can call that. He gets goals. He got some good goals and important goals for Dortmund last season. But he also he does his hard work in the midfield. So I think he's going to be one of those key players for England, where if they play him and he forms a good partnership with whoever's going to play alongside him, Phillips or someone like that, it's going to be interesting, because if he plays well and he's rock solid in that centre mid, all of a sudden you've got the attacking talent that England have, and the defense is now then protected by him. It's going to make England really dangerous, because they've got so much talent going forward that if they sort out their midfield and the defense, they're going to be a team to watch out for.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast recently around the England team, and there's actually a lot of talk about Bellingham starting. Look, obviously, with England, their formation is a bit of a question. Nobody's too sure which formation they're going to go with. But if they do start Bellingham and they put Declan Rice next to him, that does free up the front to really attack. And those two, like you are saying, both fantastic talents that can do a good job protecting the back four, but also linking up defense and attack. So they do have good options. And like the Dutch player you mentioned, Wasim, I think Jude Bellingham is in line to have a massive breakout in this tournament. So yeah, excited about Group D, but we'll move on to Group E. So if you can tell us a bit more about Group E.
Yeah, so the 4 teams in Group E are Poland, Slovakia, Spain, and Sweden. So it's no secret that Spain is the team that I support. Yeah, they're basically the best squad in that group. If you look at players on paper, I mean, you have your Thiagos, who's basically influential in every position in midfield. Yeah, he keeps sticking with his short passes, with his long passes. Then you have Ferran Torres. I think he's matured a lot this season at Manchester City, even though he hasn't played that much. But I mean, the experience that he's had, I mean, reaching that Champions League final, winning the Premier League, it's invaluable, that the experience that he's received. Somebody like Adama Traore, Ziyaad, I know you're not his biggest fan, but
man, that guy just runs around. He literally just runs around. That's all he
on
does.
his day, he can be very lethal. So I'm holding him to that. Like I'm hoping that he's gonna have 3 on his days in the group stages. Yeah, and then finally somebody that I've actually enjoyed watching the season, like mainly in the Europa League, is Gerard Mourinho. He's been on fire with the goals. He's had a spectacular season. And I mean, it ended with Europa League, with Villarreal winning the Europa League. Yeah, so Spain looks very, very good. Poland, you don't look any further than Robert Lewandowski. He just needs 10 pieces of wood with him, and he'll score all the goals himself. The guy's a machine. So yeah, like Poland's going to be very deadly. It doesn't matter how good your defense is. Lewandowski can undo that immediately. Yeah, Sweden. I think Sweden is really, really good. In terms of the other three teams in the group, they don't have the star players that Spain has. But I mean, you have Emil Forsberg from RB Leipzig. He's good in a system, and I feel like if Sweden can take that into the tournament, have players that's good in a system and play a specific way, they can get something out of this and go to the next stage. And then finally is Slovakia. They're basically the minnows in the group. They have the chance of creating an upset because people will be looking down on them. So yeah, but my two teams to go through is Spain and Sweden, with Poland maybe sneaking in.
Yeah, sounds good. Wasim, any thoughts from your side on Group E?
This is a group that I'm interested in because there's two Newcastle players that's
There
in
we
this
go.
group. So Martin Dubravka from Slovakia in goals. I think he's an excellent goalkeeper, and I really rate him highly. So I'm happy to see him at a major tournament, and I'm hoping that he does well for Slovakia. So they're going to be one of the teams that I'm going to be supporting in this tournament. And then Sweden has Emil Kraft. I'm not a big fan of Kraft, but I'll be watching Sweden, and it's always nice to see, the players of your club doing well. So I'll be backing them as well. But I think Spain should have too much for the other three teams. Poland, if they can get enough quality ball into Lewandowski, he will put the goals away. So it's just a matter of, can they create enough chances for him? If they don't get enough ball, they might struggle. So that's going to be the test for them. But it's going to be a nice open group, and I think it's not going to be a straightforward saying which two teams are going to go through, because I think we can all pick two teams, but it might not be that way, because the three teams outside of Spain all have a good chance.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, mate. For me, at the end of the day, it's who's going to feed Lewandowski, because at Bayern Munich he has so many options. Whereas I don't know if Poland have the guys that can feed him. That's going to be the biggest challenge for them to get him the right ball. And I think that the other two teams like Slovakia, they have some good experienced European players like Marek Hamšík and Skriniar from Inter Milan. Some good experienced guys who form the spine of their team. So, I think this group might be the one where the upset is caused. And another reason I say that is a bit devil's advocate here, but I think Spain are there for the taking, because I don't think Luis Enrique knows what his best 11 is. And if you look at the makeup of the squad, you don't know who's going to start. Is it going to be Mourinho? Is it going to be Ferran Torres up front? How are they going to line up? In defense, they obviously don't have Ramos for the first time in a very long time. Yeah, he's not fit, but I think it's very difficult to watch Spain without Ramos, and you've had the recent COVID outbreak within the Spanish squad with Sergio Busquets going down. He's the captain. Marcus Llorente recently tested positive. So you don't know who's actually going to be there, and in the past with Spain, you kind of knew their best 11. Maybe one or two spots were up for grabs, generally on the wing backs or the flanks. There was one or two positions where they changed, but the rest of the squad, there was a distinct spine, which I think they're missing this time. And yeah, you've got Rodri, Koki, Thiago, all these guys, fantastic. But I think there might be a big surprise, and I think Spain might drop out a bit earlier than we anticipate. And then lastly, for me with Spain, I think very excited about Aymeric Laporte having switched the legions from France to Spain. He does provide that, that solidity in the defense, and his partnership with Pau Torres is going to be very important, because the two of them are going to need to strike up a relationship very quickly. And Pau Torres, he's well sought after, he's well renowned, and a lot of teams are looking at him. So his transfer value could either soar in this Euros or drop a little bit, and it might bring some clubs into the picture who can't afford him right now. So Spain, very interesting. Their goalkeeper situation is probably the most interesting, which I actually wanted to touch on, because they've got Unai Simon from Bilbao. I don't know much about him. David De Gea, obviously a fantastic goalkeeper with United, but for some reason his stock has dropped considerably. And then you've got the newcomer Robert Sanchez rather, from Brighton, who people are seeing as a possibility to start. And I think he started in the warm-up recently. So AF, just before we move on to the group of death, just your thoughts on that. What do you think about Spain and their best 11?
Yeah, let me start with the goalkeeper situation. I think Unai Simon will end up starting in goal. David De Gea has dropped down the pecking order at Manchester United, and I think that's had a domino effect on his Spain position as well. And I think Luis Enrique wants to go with a keeper that's been playing week in, week out, that's been not only physically fit but mentally fit as well. And I think after the Europa League final, I think David De Gea's confidence is shattered. So as a manager, I would want to go with a player that's 100% focused, 100% physically fit, instead of somebody that might let in a mistake every now and then. So yeah, that's my take on the goalkeepers. And then in terms of the defense, I think Sergio Ramos goes out, Laporte comes in. It's a straight swap. I think Laporte is a fantastic centre back, and like you said, his partnership with Pau Torres is going to be very, very good in this tournament. I think the midfield, that's the only, besides the central defense, the midfield is also nailed on. I feel like Thiago will definitely start, and I feel like if Busquets wasn't infected, he would have started as well. But somebody like Rodri or Koke will now take that position. The lottery is the forwards, though, because they have a wealth of talent that they can choose from. But I don't think, as you said, Luis Enrique knows what his best front three is at the moment.
Yeah, sounds interesting, challenging. Last thing before we move on, Thiago, another guy like Bale, can he stay fit to actually contribute? We'll have to wait and see. I'm not going to go too much into that right now. So lastly, and as in every single tournament, you have the group of death. We move on to group F, which is literally a group of death. Wasim, I'll leave that one to you.
I think, the group of death is Group F, and it's got France, Germany, Hungary, and Portugal. Three major teams in terms of international football. And I think here's where the tournament format comes into play, because previously, if it was just the top two, it would have made those games so interesting, because all of a sudden it's winner takes all, loser goes home. But in this case, because there's a fourth team like Hungary, where all the other teams are expected to beat them, all of a sudden, if these two or the three big teams in this group, if they draw against each other, all of a sudden they've all got 5 points. They should all then go through to the next round. So I feel that if the format was just top two only, it would have made this group even better to watch, because then all the teams would go for wins and stuff like that. So, but it's an excellent group. Germany, former world champions not too long ago, 2014 champions. They always have talent, and they always somehow know how to perform in major tournaments. Yes, there's the odd tournament where they fall out early, but they are a really dangerous team, and a team that I backed many years ago when Ozil was still part of the setup. But I do admire the Germans and the way they seem to bring it to the tournament. So they're going to be a good team to watch. Then there's France, current world champions. They've got so much talent that their big questions were, who do we leave at home? And the team, like if you build a France 11 of players who's not in the squad, I'm sure it can give a run for the money in terms of all the other teams in this tournament, because they've just got so much talent available at this moment and in this time. So a midfield of Kante, of Pogba, of Rabier. There's just so many options, and then you've got Griezmann, Benzema, Mbappe. They really have so much talent. So they're going to be the favorites for me, the best team in the world, and they're going to be the team to watch out for. And then with this is Portugal, who have their golden generation. I mean, it was probably 20 years ago where we said they had a golden generation of Figo, Deco, Ronaldo, and so on, Simao. Now all of a sudden we've got another golden generation of Portugal players, and they are the current holders of the European Championship. So Ronaldo's one of his last major tournaments. They've got young talent like Ruben Diaz, João Felix, Bernardo Silva. They've got so many good players, and all of a sudden now they are a really dangerous team. And 2016, when they won the tournament, it was more or less, I wouldn't say a fluke, but they were lucky to win it because they finished third in their group. They, sort of edged towards the final, and even the final they won in extra time. So whereas this team is actually a really good team, and they can actually go far in this tournament as well. So it's completely turned around for Portugal. They won a tournament with average players. Now all of a sudden they've got a great squad, and can they do it again? So it's going to make it a really interesting tournament. And Hungary formed the last team of this group, but I feel that they're just going to struggle because you can get a good result in one match, but to follow that up against Germany, France, and Portugal, it's going to be very tough. So they'll probably be the team that will lose all the games.
I think, yeah, this group actually is the evidence for why you don't like this format, because, it just takes away, because obviously those three teams will go through. There's just too much star power within that group, and it just takes away a little bit from the games, until we get to the knockouts. But at the same time, if you look at UEFA's perspective, they're not losing a team early. So they still have all the eyeballs on the matches, which is, ultimately what they want. And you made some fantastic points. Obviously, each of those three teams have a chance to win it. For me, the biggest storyline in terms of the Germans is that their coach has officially, said that this is his last outing with the team. They've identified the success already. So can they, send him off well after 15 years, managing the team? Or is it going to be another disappointment? It's going to be something that's going to be interesting to watch. If I'll leave France and their prospects with you. And for me, I think with Hungary, there's a very interesting player within their squad that, a lot of teams wanted. I can't pronounce his name properly, but I'll give it a try. It's Dominic Soboslai or something along those lines. And unfortunately, he's injured. So we're not going to get to see him in this tournament. And, that obviously is a bit disappointing. But Portugal with Ronaldo, he's got a better supporting cast, like you say. They're gonna be, quite interesting. But yeah, if it's not England, the winner probably will come from this group. If your thoughts specifically on France.
Yeah, look, Wasim was nailed on earlier. France has an amazing squad. They have crazy attacking power. They have so much creativity in the middle of the park. I mean, you have an engine in Kante who, after 2 hours, he will look like he has a new battery. You have somebody like Pogba that can pick out passes from a mile away. You have Griezmann that can place passes through 3 people's legs at the same time. And I mean, you have Mbappe that on the shoulder of any defender is going to be like such a huge threat. So I think France is definitely nailed on to win this group, and I think Portugal will be runners up. I think Germany will be the best out of the thirds.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Like I say, lots of storylines within that group, and yeah, after getting through all the groups now, I'm a bit more excited about this tournament. It's on our doorstep. The first game is tomorrow night, so Friday the 11th of June. We start off with Italy and Turkey. So as an Italy supporter, that's quite exciting for me. And I haven't watched Italy much in recent times, to be honest. So I'm looking forward to getting, familiar with the squad again. And I know the names, but I haven't actually followed them too much. And obviously the Turkish team is interesting as well. So as we wrap up, guys, I'm just going to throw it back to you for a quick prediction. Who do you think is going to win the tournament? So if your prediction for the winner?
I think I'm going to go with France.
Okay.
As much as it hurts me to say that.
Wasim?
Yeah, it's. I think it's very difficult to sway away from France. The other teams have good players. But I think France, because they're current world champions and because they just have so much talent available, they're covered in all departments. So I'll go with France as well.
Yeah, so I'm gonna also be boring and stick with it. And I think a nice narrative that's coming out from the French camp is the similarities between Deschamps' team when he was a player and Deschamps' team now as a manager. Because Deschamps was part of the double winning French team, which won the World Cup in '98, followed by the Euros in 2000, and they're trying to replicate that now with the World Cup in 2018 and the Euros in 2020. And there's just lots of comparisons between those players and the players now. There's comparisons between Mbappe and Henry, Benzema and Trezeguet, for example, Kante and Deschamps himself. It is quite interesting, and everyone likes a story. So this might just be the good story for the French. But let's see. Football has a way of throwing us with surprises, and I'm excited to go through this tournament, and I'm going to be watching closely. So that's all we have time for in this episode. We are going to be back with another episode after match day 1. So when match day 2 starts, which is on the 16th of June, this coming Wednesday, we'll be up again with another episode. And for those of you that are new over here, just go check out our social media platforms. We Sportycast on Instagram, on Twitter. We have a YouTube channel as well, and then with Wasim and All Things Football, they're doing some amazing work. I know I can say this: they've got an interview coming out with Shoaib Walters in the coming days. So go follow them on their socials as well. They're on Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube. A fantastic channel, and I'm looking forward personally to checking out the interview with Shoaib Walters. So yeah, gents, thanks for your time. We hopefully will have you back on for the next episode and all the way through the Euros.